Preachers have favorite subjects and topics and themes. Signature sermons, if you'd like to call them that. One of Jesus' signature sermons was, "Wake up!" I have a favorite topic. It's not so much titled Salvation, or the power of positive thinking, or seed faith, or you're all going to go to hell, you miserable sinners. That's not my topic. This morning is one of my signature sermons, talking about how the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy, as it says in our reading from Job. You would have felt that way had you seen the red sunrise a couple of days ago. Or how the night sky is like a starlit cloak wrapped around the Creator's shoulders, whose lifted arms spread out the heavens like a curtain, as it poetically says in our psalm. In this wonderful world we inhabit, might the world point to something beyond itself? Might it give us clues? Might there be signposts to something greater? It reminds me of a story of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, who decided to go camping together. And they set up their camp, and they lit their fire, and they, after dinner and a bottle of wine, they lay down for the night to go to sleep. Some hours later, Holmes nudged his faithful friend. "Watson, look up at the sky and tell me what you see." Watson replied, "I see 1,000,000 stars." "What does that tell you?" he asked. Watson pondered a moment. "Astronomically, it tells me that there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets. Astrologically, I observe that Saturn is in Leo. Horologically, I deduce that the time is about 3:15. And any meteorologist can see that it's going to be a clear day tomorrow, except, of course, in Michigan. And theologically, I can see that God is all-powerful and that we are small and insignificant." Then Watson asked, "What does the night sky tell you, Holmes?" And Holmes replied, "Watson, you idiot, someone has stolen our tent." I can remember when I was a kid, and if there was nothing good on Ed Sullivan or the Lawrence Welk Show, and if you don't know who any of those are, ask your parents, my bored dad would tap his pipe, and he'd rise and he'd glide out of the room and wander outside, and in the mystical, moist night air, look up in perfect silence at the stars that human beings have been gazing at and looking at for a millennia. I continue the tradition, occasionally making my own son glide along with me out into the cold night air, all the while he complains like Job. Imagine the Milky Way stretching above your heads like a meadow. Nobody knows how many stars are in the Milky Way. Estimates range from 100 to 400 billion. And it makes you wonder things. Where does it lead? And where did the cosmos begin? Or where did it end? And what lies beyond? And who am I to even ponder such great thoughts? I think that's what Job had in mind when he concluded at the end of his long journey, God is not the man upstairs who makes some shady deal with the devil, but God is the author of the cosmos. And yet, God knows you by name. When I was a kid, someone told me in the black canvas of the evening sky, the stars are holes to let the glory of heaven shine through. As an adult, I know better. Or do I? If you've ever seen a falling star, you're watching a funeral that took place a long, long time ago. How we see the stars, they're not as they are, but as the light left them maybe 1,000 years ago. Even the sun is that way. Some stars are light years away. The average distance between stars out there is 20 million miles. Galaxies are millions of times farther away than that. Bill Bryson wrote, if you want to build an old-fashioned Big Bang universe, you'll need to gather up everything that is, every last particle of matter in the universe, which would weigh billions of tons, and then you have to squeeze it into a spot so small and compact that it has no dimensions at all. If you held it in a teaspoon, it would weigh 1 billion tons. Yes, heavier than my Aunt Jean's. Graveyard and bat and vampires and devil and evil and danger and loss and fear. Fear is the main thing. Almost everybody is afraid of something, be it financial or political or the future or how the past creeps up on you or for your health or how to live with the absence of someone you love. But on my personal journey, I have learned things in the dark that I could have never learned in the light, like trust and hope and presence. I've learned that these things have saved my life over and over again. Things like how spacious and sacred and unpredictable life is. Things I've learned like energy never dies but only changes forms. I've learned there's a danger to making God so personal that you can lose your reverence. I've learned that I'm not alone, that God is there, and like the stars, even when it's stormy or cloudy and you can't see them. I've learned something else too. I know why the ancients called the night sky heaven. I read something cute. A kid hugged and kissed his mom goodnight. I love you so much, the kid said to his mom, that when you die, I'm going to bury you right outside my window. Nice sentiment. We may be buried right outside the window, but our life force, our soul, the you that looks out the window of your own eyes, will be beyond the stars. St. Paul wrote, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, present with Jesus, who is the bright and morning star. And I can never talk about the sacramental sky without mentioning how I sat with my daughter on a bench in the backyard in Mississippi, and we were watching the stars. And I told her about how the ancient explorers used to use the stars to navigate their way with their ships across the ocean, to find their way, to guide them home. And I casually pointed out the Big Dipper. And Jessica exclaimed, I see it, she said. It was her first time to actually read a constellation in the sky. Now she is beyond, looking at the same stars, but from the other side. But on this side of the curtain, I am not afraid. I am not alone, and I trust the Creator. I am at the same place as those ancient explorers, those wandering prophets, and those wide-eyed poets. Poets like Sarah Williams. And if you don't know who she is, ask your great-grandparents. because she lived in the 1800s, the early mid-1800s. She had a rough life. She suffered the loss of her father, was devastated by that, and then she suffered through and died of cancer at age 27. Her most famous poem is The Old Astronomer, where she placed some of her own hope in the last line as I close. And she wrote this: "Though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. I have loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night." Amen.